Hi, you're on the Revenge Cheating channel. The suitcase was sitting in plain sight, right by the front door, fully packed, zipper halfway undone. She stepped over it. Twice. That's how I knew she wouldn't notice I was gone, not right away. She was too busy pacing the kitchen in her heels, yelling into her phone about dinner reservations for a restaurant I'd never heard of, and a dress code I wasn't invited to match. I stood in the hallway, one hand on the doorknob, listening to her say, "No, he's harmless. He wouldn't even ask. He's just always there. Always there. Like furniture. Like Wi Fi. Like something expected." I pressed my ear against the door frame as she laughed at whatever was said next. It wasn't meant to be cruel. That was the worst part. It wasn't even personal. She didn't see me. Not really. She hadn't in months, maybe years. My car keys made a soft clink against my thigh as I shifted my weight. I hadn't planned this. Not in the way people plan escapes. There was no letter, no confrontation, just quiet. I looked around the room one last time, her scarf on the back of my chair, her perfume still hanging in the hallway. Her world, fully intact, without any space carved out for me. She didn't even turn when the door opened, didn't ask where I was going, didn't say, "Love you," like she used to, before her voice became so public facing it forgot how to sound intimate. And just like that, I left. The strangest part? I didn't feel free. Not yet. I felt hollow, like I was fading in real time, one footstep at a time. But the hollowness didn't last because less than 72 hours later, the texts started. "Mora, hey, where are you? Mora, are you okay? Mora, Lowell, this isn't funny. Call me. Mora, why is your phone disconnected? Mora, did you seriously leave without saying anything? Mora, I need to talk to you." That was the moment it began to hit her. Not just that I was missing, but that she never once considered I could be. But here's the kicker. She thinks I'm running because I'm hurt. She thinks this is about her. She doesn't know, not yet, that I found something. Something she buried deep. And if she ever finds me, she'll wish she hadn't. I rented it under a fake last name. Cash deposit, month-to-month lease. The kind of place with a crooked ceiling fan and blinds that never fully close. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And more importantly, it wasn't hers. The first night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared, though there was fear, but because silence can be deafening when you've been living under constant noise. I kept expecting her voice to echo from the next room, asking where the coffee filters were, or demanding I help her find her missing charger that was always in her purse. But no one spoke. No one blamed. No one dismissed me. I sat on a mattress on the floor with one lamp flickering and read every message she'd sent. At first, they were angry, then concerned, then confused. "You're acting crazy. Can we just talk like adults? Did something happen to your parents? Please, Lowell, this is scaring me." But it was the voicemail that broke the pattern. Her voice cracked. Not performative, not exaggerated. The voice of a woman who was spiraling. "If you don't call me back, I'll start calling your work, your sister, anyone. Just tell me what's going on. Please, I need to know you're okay." She didn't realize I'd already left that world behind. My job thought I was on stress leave. My sister had strict instructions to say nothing. She was the only person I told, and she agreed, without hesitation. "Out of time," she said. "You were erasing yourself in that marriage." Still, I wasn't prepared for what happened next. 3 days into my disappearance, I stepped out to buy toothpaste. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. I wore a hat I never used to wear. But as I turned the corner of the small convenience store by the gas station, I froze. There by the freezer section was a woman. Not Mora, but her friend Natalie. Natalie, the one who always greeted me with tight smiles and eyes that scanned me like I was a math problem she didn't have time to solve. She was holding a pack of frozen peas and scrolling through her phone, totally unaware that she'd just wandered into the middle of a secret. I backed out before she looked up, walked straight into a trash bin, scraped my hand, and didn't stop moving until I reached the apartment again, heart racing like I committed a crime. 10 minutes later, Maura texted, "Why are you hiding in Pine Grove Apartments?" She knew. Somehow, she knew. I stared at the message, my pulse in my throat, wondering, was it Natalie? Did I leave a trail? Did she track my purchases? Did I underestimate her? Or was this part of something bigger I hadn't seen yet? Because the truth is, I hadn't told you everything. There was something I'd found before I left. Something Maura thought she'd deleted. And if she's digging this hard to find me, it's because she's terrified I'll use it. The thing about people like Maura is they get lazy when they think you'll never leave. They hide things in plain sight, not because they're careless, but because they think you're too weak to look. And maybe I was for a long time. But a few nights before I disappeared, I couldn't sleep. She was in the bedroom, asleep with her back turned to me, and I was on the couch with my knees pulled to my chest, staring at the glow of her old tablet charging in the corner. I don't even know why I picked it up. She hadn't used it in months, said it was too slow, full of junk. But it wasn't junk. Not all of it. The tablet wasn't password protected. That part stunned me. But what stunned me more was the folder tucked inside her cloud drive labeled Archives Do Not Delete. They were videos, screenshots, chat logs. I wish I could say I hesitated before opening them, but I didn't. I opened them like a man already bleeding and curious about how deep the wound really goes. The first video was from a year ago. It was her, Maura, in a hotel room I didn't recognize. She was laughing, barefoot, champagne in one hand, sitting far too close to a man I'd never seen before. His name came up a few seconds in, Victor. He was tall, loud, obnoxious in the way that only men who feel entitled can be. She leaned into him, whispered something, and he pulled her into his lap. That video ended there, but there were more. So many more. Different hotels, different cities, the same man, same routine, same betrayal. I remember setting the tablet down gently, like it was a sleeping child, then walking to the bathroom and staring at myself in the mirror for a full 10 minutes. My eyes looked foreign to me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't punch anything. I just watched myself blink. Then I smiled. Not because I was okay, far from it, but because that's the moment I realized I didn't need to confront her. I didn't need to rage or fight or beg, that I could just disappear. I could vanish so completely that it would ruin her in ways she'd never anticipate. Because Maura wasn't afraid of being hated. She was afraid of being ignored, of being unimportant. That night, I backed up everything. I emailed it all to an encrypted address I created under a fake name. I deleted the email from the tablet and cleaned the browser history. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I left her phone in the car the next morning, knowing she'd be too distracted to notice. It gave me enough time to finalize my escape. And now she knows I saw something, but she doesn't know what. The texts have gone from pleading to frantic. "Lowell, please, we need to talk. I made mistakes. I know that. But this
This is insane. Did you find the files? Tell me what you know. Please, just tell me. The last message chilled me to the bone. Lowell, if you show anyone, you'll destroy more than just me. Which raises the question, what else is she hiding? I couldn't sleep after that last message. Not because I was afraid of what she might do, but because her words rang with something unfamiliar. Panic. Not guilt, not regret. Real fear. Maura wasn't the type to scare easily. She was strategic, bold, and loud when cornered. But that last text wasn't loud. It was quiet, calculated, dangerous. I knew there was more. The videos were bad enough, but I could sense that wasn't what she was truly afraid of me exposing. And if there's one thing I learned in 11 years of marriage, it's this. Maura always keeps her real secrets separate. That's when I remembered something. One small, strange moment from 3 years ago. We were at a bank finalizing a mortgage adjustment after her job change. The loan officer asked if we wanted to include the Beat Connor savings account as part of the joint profile. I'd asked her about it later. She told me it was an old closed account in her maiden name, probably just paperwork confusion. I bought it. Of course I did. Back then, I believed her, even when the truth hissed in the back of my head. Now, I couldn't let it go. So I started digging, quietly, carefully, using a public Wi-Fi cafe 2 towns over, with gloves on the keyboard and a borrowed laptop from a pawn shop that I paid for in cash. Paranoid? Maybe. But Maura knew people. Some from her job. Some from wherever she kept that version of herself I never met. It took me 4 hours to find it. Beatrice Connors, a checking account linked to 2 wire transfers, one international.
One to a name I didn't recognize, the other to someone who did sound familiar, a woman named Lizette Danvers. She used to work with Maura, I think, some regional strategist who quit suddenly and moved to Florida. Maura said she was burned out and boring. Lizette's name popped up again, on a lease agreement for a 2-bedroom condo registered under Connors LLC. The address? 1 block away from the hotel where Maura had filmed one of her little champagne celebrations. I sat there, breath frozen in my chest as it hit me. This wasn't about an affair. Not really. This was something layered, something financial, something criminal. I scrolled through more digital paperwork, payments listed as consulting, deposits labeled reimbursement. But no description, no trail that made real sense. Unless the point was for it to not make sense. My phone vibrated even though I'd left it on Do Not Disturb. One message from an unknown number. You're asking the wrong questions, Lowell. Go home. I swear my blood ran cold. No name, no contact saved, just a threat wrapped in passive voice. And that's when I realized something bone deep. This wasn't just about a broken marriage. I wasn't just the victim of infidelity. I was standing in the middle of something far more dangerous than I ever expected. And someone didn't want me pulling the thread any further. After the anonymous message, I didn't leave the coffee shop immediately. I sat there, staring at the screen, half expecting another message to pop up. None did. The barista called out an order that wasn't mine, and the noise brought me back into my body. My hands were trembling, my neck was hot. Someone knew I was looking, and that meant someone had been watching. I left everything behind, didn't even take the laptop, just grabbed the flash drive with the documents I downloaded and walked straight into the rain without an umbrella. My thoughts were storm anyway. Mara had created a whole parallel life under her maiden name, with real estate, wire transfers, aliases. And now I was being warned off. The woman who once screamed at me for accidentally deleting a draft email was laundering money, or worse. I used to think I was too boring for her. Maybe I was just too normal. Back in the apartment, I rechecked everything I had saved. A receipt I hadn't noticed before caught my eye. An auto payment to Lockbox Storage 3G. The location was in a warehouse district on the edge of town, the kind of place no one would ever accidentally stumble across. I couldn't ignore it. If she had something to hide, I was going to find it. The next morning, I drove out there. It was all beige steel siding, rusted doors, no cameras I could see. Just an older man behind a scratched plastic window who looked half asleep. Unit 47G, I told him, showing the printed copy of the receipt Mara's LLC had paid for. I'm helping the owner move out. She asked me to grab a few boxes. He barely looked at me. She leave the key with you? I nodded, lied. He buzzed me through. I found the unit at the far end of the third row. The number had peeled halfway off. I stood there a minute, holding my breath before snapping the padlock with bolt cutters I'd bought that morning. When the doors creaked open, the scent of old paper and perfume hit me like a memory I never wanted. Inside were 6 labeled boxes, a garment rack covered with dust, and a filing cabinet so dented it looked like it had been kicked more than once. I started with the cabinet. Inside were folders stuffed with names I didn't recognize, stamped letters from attorneys, drafts of contracts, burner phone receipts, and worst of all, photographs. Black and white copies of people sitting in parked cars, hotel lobbies, office buildings. At first, I thought they were surveillance shots of Mara, but then I saw her in the corner of one frame, sitting in the same car as the photographer. And that's when it hit me. Mara wasn't just hiding money or having affairs. She was working with someone. She was watching people, gathering information, maybe even blackmailing them. I didn't know what Connors LLC really was yet, but it was no shell company. It was active, intentional, a machine that didn't just hide money, but moved it in ways that screamed leverage, not love. My phone buzzed again. Block number. I answered it this time. "You're very close to something dangerous," a voice said, distorted, low, almost robotic. "She's not who you think. Walk away before you can't." The line went dead. I dropped the phone. It hit the concrete like a final warning, but it was already too late for that. I couldn't walk away, because now I knew one thing for sure. Mara wasn't looking for me out of love. She was trying to clean up her mess, and I was the last loose end. The folder I couldn't stop staring at was labeled in thick marker, D. Merrill, classified. Not printed, handwritten. Inside were a handful of printed photographs and a single stained envelope. Every logical part of me screamed to put it back, close the unit, walk away. But logic had stopped driving this story 2 parts ago. I opened it. The photos were recent, within the last year, I guessed. One of them showed a man in a business suit shaking hands with another guy outside a courthouse. Another had the same man, D. Merrill, I assumed, stepping into a car. The license plate was blacked out with marker. I flipped through 3 more before I saw something that knocked the breath out of my lungs. In the 4th photo, sitting at a cafe directly across from that same D. Merrill guy, was Mara, and not in the background, not candid. She was looking right at him, smiling,
sunglasses on the table, phone in her hand. Her body language was relaxed, flirtatious even. This wasn't business. This wasn't a passing interaction. This was something ongoing. The back of the photo had a scribbled note in pencil. Confirm wire dates. Deliverables due by September 17th. Risk low. He suspects nothing. I wanted to vomit. Not because of the implications. I already knew Mara was a liar. But because someone wrote that about me. He suspects nothing. That was me. I was the nothing. I took out the envelope and found a key, smaller than the storage lock key, probably to a mailbox, and a single note on thin stationery. You said if it ever came to this, I'd know what to do. So I'm doing it. Stay invisible, no signature. Just those words. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but it felt rushed, scratched, like someone was shaking when they wrote it. What kind of life had Mara been living that there were instructions in place for her disappearance? When I left her, I thought I was walking away from an unfaithful wife, a manipulator who chipped away at me until I disappeared into silence.
But now, I was starting to believe I'd walked into something more dangerous than betrayal. I'd walked into a conspiracy I didn't understand, and somehow, my absence might have disrupted it. I was the unpredictable element. And unpredictable people, I assumed, are the ones who didn't stay missing for long. That night, I drove 3 hours north and rented a room under a new name. Didn't use cards. Didn't check my usual email. I sat with the folders spread across the motel bed, like puzzle pieces from someone else's life. But one name kept appearing in notes and emails. A name I hadn't seen in years. Callum Greer. He was Mara's old boss. She used to call him paranoid, said he was always talking about data security, double-checking everything, hiring private drivers to avoid being tracked. I remember laughing at her stories, thinking he sounded like a cartoon villain. But now, with his name tied to wire transfers and secret meetings, I wasn't laughing. And that's when I realized something even darker. If Mara was trying to track me, she wasn't doing it alone. And if Greer was involved, or worse, pulling her strings, then this went far beyond marriage. It wasn't just about secrets anymore. It was about survival. I hadn't heard the name Callum Greer in almost 6 years. He was a corporate ghost, the kind of man who existed more on paper than in person. Even back when Mara worked for him, she talked about him like you talk about an urban legend. Her old office used to whisper about him, how he never used the same phone number twice, how he made his assistant sign an NDA just to schedule his meetings. He's eccentric, she once said, with a sly smile, but scary smart. So when I saw his name in Mara's files, linked to transfers and encrypted emails, I couldn't let it go. I had no idea what he meant to her, or what he might want from me now. But something told me he was the missing piece in this mess. I just didn't expect him to find me first. It happened late. Too late. I'd fallen asleep with the motel TV on low volume, the static hum of some old documentary about serial killers lulling me into half-consciousness. Then, a knock. Not hard, not hurried, just 3 dull taps. I sat up instantly, heart hammering, trying to decide if I was dreaming or if someone had really found me. Another knock. I grabbed the folder from the bed and stuffed it into my duffel, teetoed toward the door, and looked through the peephole. A man in a brown leather jacket, hands in pockets. Calm. Too calm. He didn't knock again. He just spoke softly but clearly through the door. Lowell, If I meant you harm, you'd already know it. Let me in. We need to talk. He said my name like it wasn't a guess, like he'd been using it in his head for days. Against every instinct, I opened the door just a few inches, leaving the chain on. Who are you? I asked. Callum Grayer, he said without hesitation. Your wife didn't tell you everything. I think you've figured that out by now. I didn't speak. I just stared at him, searching his face for some sign of deception. He didn't look like a villain. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in a week. Tired eyes, pale skin. His left hand trembled slightly. I know where she is, he continued. I know what she's doing. And you've seen enough to understand that this isn't about infidelity anymore. I closed the door without saying a word, removed the chain, then opened it again slowly. Talk. He didn't enter like a man who owned the room. He entered like someone who expected to be attacked at any second. He sat at the edge of the motel chair, glancing once at the smoke detector, then at the unplugged TV. She worked for me, yes, he said, but not in the way she told you. It wasn't about branding or marketing. It was data, acquisition, people, information that was meant to stay buried. He went on to explain that Mara had become more than just an asset. She was part of an inner circle that ran deep channels of influence, targeting people, gathering leverage, sometimes even orchestrating scandals to shift markets. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. But he said something next that stole my breath completely. She never meant to involve you, Lowell. You were supposed to be invisible. You were her alibi, her anchor, her storybook normal. But when you left, you forced her into chaos. She's been spinning ever since. He reached into his jacket slowly, carefully, and handed me a photograph. I recognized the place instantly, the train station I'd used to vanish. The timestamp was from the morning I left. In the corner of the frame, Mara, staring, not at the camera, at me. She watched you leave, he said, and she didn't stop you, but she didn't expect you to dig either. I looked up from the photo, my voice thin. Why are you here? His answer was soft. Because she's not the only one looking for you. And the next person who finds you won't knock. I didn't sleep the night Callum left. He warned me they'd come. Not Mara, not someone I'd recognize, but the cleanup crew. The ones who tie off loose ends when secrets start leaking. That's what I had become. A liability. But the thing about running is that eventually you get tired. And the thing about hiding, you start to forget what it felt like to live. By dawn, I made my choice. I took everything. The documents, the files, the photos, the tablet I'd hidden, and I drove to the nearest federal building. I didn't give my name at first. I just asked to speak to someone in internal investigations. When they brought out a man in a dull gray tie who looked more confused than concerned, I dropped the flash drive on his desk and said, "This implicates a lot of powerful people, and I'm done protecting them." It took hours, maybe more. I told my story, every word, every detail. I gave them names, dates, wire transfers, accounts. I gave them everything. And then I walked out. It didn't take long for Mara to find me. Not because she tracked me. She didn't have to. I let her. I knew once the information was public, she'd come running, if only to try and spin the story. And I was right. She showed up at a diner where I'd been sipping black coffee, looking 10 years older and nothing like the cold, perfect woman I once knew. She slid into the booth across from me and didn't speak for nearly a minute. Finally, she said, "Why?"
I looked her in the eyes, calm as ever, because I finally realized I wasn't the ghost. You were. She didn't cry. Mara never cried. But her lip trembled, like a cracking glass. And she nodded. That was it. No defense. No excuses. Just silence. We didn't talk long. There was nothing left to say. She walked out first, shoulders hunched, her power finally gone. Not because I exposed her, but because I stopped needing her approval. It's been 9 months now. I live in a different city. I've started over completely. I joined a writer's group of all things. Turns out, telling the truth feels like a lot like fiction when you've lived in the lies long enough. I still think about her sometimes, not with pain, but like a memory from a different life. Distant, foggy, powerless. And I guess if you're watching this wondering why I shared all of it, it's because someone out there might be where I was. Silent, erased, afraid. Wondering if disappearing makes you a coward. It doesn't. Sometimes vanishing is the first step towards becoming seen again. By yourself. Thanks for watching Wet It Confessions. Now, it's your turn. Comment below with a moment in history where someone walked away and changed everything. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, and keep coming back for more unforgettable stories.